Hi, welcome to today's live chat with Record Searchlight and Reading.com. I'm here with Jake Mangas, to my immediate left, President of the Reading Chamber of Commerce, and next to him is Tony Giovaniello, who is President of the Shasta County EDC. Today we're going to be talking about the sales tax initiative that's going to be appearing on the November ballot. Before we get started though, I'd like Jake and Tony to give us a little bit of background about themselves. They're both in their first year on the job, so Jake, why don't you go first?
Thanks, Dave, first of all. You had mentioned first year. We feel sort of like the new kids on the block, I would say. And that's been really great. When you think about the number of organizations in the business association community or economic development, and there's been a lot of recent changes, and excited about moving forward in this new era. So I'm Jake Mangas, hired president of the Chamber of Commerce, and great responsibility that I feel to represent the business community in the ways that we do. Over the last decade, I was the Director of Development and Legacy Giving at Northern Valley Catholic Social Service, and I was born in Chico, but my parents moved up to Reading when I was an infant, so I claim Reading as my hometown, and have chosen it to raise my family, my wife Janet, and our 3 kids. And so just pleased to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. How about yourself, Tony?
David, pleasure to be here. It's always great to sit next to Jake, too. We're enjoying this journey together. We've got somewhat separate missions, but we try to stay connected.
Yep.
Obviously, it would be really great if we can amplify the power of the area by working together while we're maintaining our focus, right, on our specific jobs.
Absolutely.
So I started at the EDC in April and replaced Mark Lascelles, who had done a great job building a new strategy to reposition the EDC, and we're building on that. And we're excited by the opportunities that are available to the region. Sometimes when you get a chance to get in and look under the hood, the engine can be very complex, but a lot of times there's real easy things, like low-hanging fruit that you can work on. And I think sometimes when you can get some small successes, you have the opportunity to build trust and confidence. So you asked a little bit about who I am. Well, I come from the technology and manufacturing background. Was in the business world for 38 years, was retired, and really I figured out that I was retiring from traveling, not working. I actually liked the stuff I did. So when I saw the EDC position was open and I engaged, it was really nice to see the focus of the EDC was technology and manufacturing. So it was a good place for me to be. I've lived here for almost 20 years. My wife is 5th generation Shasta County. And all the years that I was working, since I was traveling, I hadn't had an opportunity to give back to the community the way I wanted to, and this is a great way to do it.
Thanks, Tony.
Sure.
So again, I'm reporter David Benda, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. And again, the topic's going to be on the sales tax measures to help public safety or fund public safety, Measures D and Measures E, which will be on the November ballot, and how they might impact businesses and the economy should they pass. Now, to participate in today's discussion, you can go to Reading.com, go to the article, and ask your questions in the box at the bottom of the article. Or if you're on Twitter, you can use the hashtag ReadingTax. Again, I want to thank Jake and Tony for coming in today, and let's get started. Jake, let's start with you.
Okay.
The Chamber made news last month when they came out and endorsed Measures D and Measures E. And as you know, this came after a survey that the Chamber circulated in May. The results of the survey came back, and those who took the survey were for the sales tax hike.
Correct.
So again, the Chamber has endorsed the measure. I'm wondering what you've been hearing from your members since that endorsement, and maybe some of the concerns and whatnot you've been hearing.
Well, I think that when we first discussed the announcement of my coming into the chamber, you had asked what I would intended to do at the start, and I said I would be doing a lot of listening, and that's certainly been the case throughout these first 6 months. And one of the common ailments that I've been hearing from our members is challenges that they've been facing that would be related to public safety, whether it be people breaking into their locations, making their customers feel unsafe, having perhaps human excrement on the doorway when they come to work in the morning, those types of things. So that was one of the themes that I've heard along the way. But before the organization would take a public stance on Measure D and Measure E, it was very important to me that we heard from the most important collective voice of our organization, which would be that of our membership. So we did send out that survey, and the results did come back at 54% to 46% in favor of the chamber supporting Measures D and E. And so when we did this thoughtful process, I think thorough and thoughtful process, we took that information to our political action committee, and they made the recommendation to our board to follow along the lead of the membership, and the board then followed suit, and we made that decision. I would say that we are in support of Measure D and E. We also have a resolution that's been drafted that has some contingencies to that support, and namely that it has to have a sunset period of no more than 10 years, that there be an accompanying advisory measure that advises the voters, advise the city council, present and future, as to how those funds would be used, and then also that there be an advisory committee that is created, a citizens committee, and that the chamber occupy at least one of those seats on that citizens committee. So a bit of a chicken and egg thing, because it would have to pass for that citizens committee to come into effect, but it's important for us, because when you look at, and I'm going on and on right now, but I have to explain this part of it too, is that we recognize that in the comment section of the survey that people were saying the reasons for why they would vote yes would be because we've got to take our city back, we've got to do something, we can't accept this as the new normal for our community, we need to give our the public safety, not only police, fire, mental health, etc., the tools that they need to be successful and to make a difference in our community. That would be the yes side, and then you've got the no comments, and a number of the no comments, I would say the vast majority of them had to do with trust issues with the city council, present and future, doing what the voters advise they do with the funds. So we listened to that voice and said, well, we've got to make sure that we insist upon accountability and transparency in the process. So that was the reason why we put that as one of the, caveats to the support, that there be a citizens committee and that we have at least one seat on that citizens committee.
And again, concerns. Have you heard any concerns, or what have you heard from the business community? And if you could maybe focus on economic concerns, questions since the chamber endorsement, what are you hearing? I'm
hearing overwhelming positive support for that decision. I think that our members rely upon us to take a stand, and one of the unifying things about this is that I think most people in the community in general agree that we've got to do something, that public safety is our top priority as a community right now. If you were to look at economic development perhaps as a pyramid, like a hierarchy of needs, I would say that at the base of that pyramid would be safety. That if we don't have a community that's perceived as safe, or that actually is safe, it's not going to be a place that people want to live, play, or work. And I think about in Tony's world that you bring in a would-be employer to the area, and that's probably going to be one of the factors that they look at.
Sure.
Now, Tony, your organization, the Shasta County EDC, does your organization support Measures D and E? And if it does, why? If it does not, why not?
Well, David, first of all, I must say that I'm glad that Jake has the latitude to speak on these issues, but in a lot of ways the EDC is a little bit different than the Chamber. The Chamber is funded totally by private funds.
That's true.
So the EDC is funded by public and private funds, and typically we do not take stands on specific measures or candidates, things like that. However, we do have our beliefs on what is good for business. So generally speaking, I can say that crime and homelessness, those two things generally can become part of your brand out in the world. And when you're recruiting companies in, that can be a potential problem. A point of example would be there are some surveys out there which companies look at when they're evaluating areas, both current ongoing companies and even people thinking about starting a business. And it's so interesting because we have so many attractive things here, right?
It's
We
true.
have so many recreational
Mhm.
opportunities. But when you look at the quality of life ratings that we get, they're usually well below average. And when you look under those numbers, they tie it to crime and homelessness. Okay, so obviously that affects our brand and attractiveness. Sometimes I wonder if we're really any worse than anywhere else, or is it more about, the way, it's kind of interesting. We are a great community in that when we see problems, we work to solve them, which is great. But we also address that and wrestle with that way out in front of everybody. And you can say, well, maybe that's how we get a lot of community involvement to address the problems, but it also starts to become more of our brand, maybe more so than some other places.
So, that point you just made, are you saying you wish maybe some of our discussions weren't so public and out there? Is that what you're saying, Tony? Or maybe...
I don't want to run from our problems,
Mhm.
right? But I'd like to see some of that stuff at least paralleled or maybe overpowered by more positive things. And we have a tremendous
Mhm.
amount of positive things that are out there in our business community and even in other aspects of the community. And I just think that there is an opportunity for us to solve problems and brand ourselves in a positive way. And I don't think we have the right mixture to do that yet.
I would say I completely agree. I was thinking about, what is the antidote? One of the antidotes in our world is certainly creating an environment that's going to foster economic development and job creation. Because when you think of like joblessness and hopelessness kind of go hand in hand, and I believe in our world that that's one of the things that we can do to be a part of this solution is to bring a sense of worth to someone who is not making it right now because they don't have a job. It can lead to a lot of the issues that we have in the community. But to the untold success stories and things like that, I was thinking about like how surprised I've been in the past 6 months since coming on with the Chamber in seeing what comes out of Shasta County and Reading in terms of talent. And sometimes it's hidden talent. Sometimes it is broadcasted before a national audience, like Sublime Cake, winning. I think it was on the Food Network recently. Anyway, that type of thing. Or you get Jet Evader and Sea Breacher, and I got that,
The video.
What did we have? The Discovery Channel came to town and
Yeah.
doing a feature on them. So it's true. We have a lot of good that happens here as well. But because of continuous quality improvement, we got to address the challenges as well. So.
I mean, and to your point you made, Tony, there does seem to be this perception in the community on Facebook in particular. There are a number of crime groups on Facebook, I'm sure you guys are aware of, that the streets in this city are not safe. And some believe that this negativity hurts businesses in the area, and it hurts those who are trying to bring businesses to Shasta County. And I'll start with you, Tony. Well, I mean, what do you think about that? True or not?
I think it definitely adds a hurdle. There are a lot of other places that are wrestling with the same thing. This is not specific to Shasta County or Reading. So, this is a problem that everyone who's trying to recruit businesses in is facing. And in some ways, going back to your chicken and egg referral,
Yeah.
there are chronically homeless, obviously people that have issues that that need to be helped and taken care of, and there's crime, some of it generated by people not having jobs, as you mentioned. So you can step back and say there is some portion of crime and homelessness that comes from not having jobs. So we have a direct influence on that, and I wouldn't blame the fact that we don't have enough jobs on homelessness. You could equally say that we have homelessness and crime because we haven't created the jobs. So we have to come at it from both sides of the problem, right? The solution's in the middle somewhere.
And it's like attracting people from the outside to take a chance on our community, and then also thinking about those that are here as well. And I've been impressed with the work that the EDC has done around shifting the focus, and we know we've been a region that was once natural resource based economy, and that's not what it once was. And so Tony and the team have done a wonderful job. I mean, just in the newspaper today on what you've got going on with coding schools, and et cetera.
Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony can and has addressed certainly the potential hurdles for luring businesses or recruiting businesses in the area when some of this negativity is out there. But businesses that are already here. I mean, do you agree that when you see these comments, does it hurt these businesses, or what do you think, Jake?
I think it does. I mean, it has to, unfortunately. I mean, I'll speak for myself in a way where you look at the Reading of my youth, the Reading of 20 years ago, the Reading of 10 years ago, knowing that problems like that we're experiencing with property crime escalation and drug addiction challenges are not specific to Reading, but we just take our own perspective from our worldview, which if you've lived in a community for a period of time and you've seen things go in a direction you don't like, you feel that. So it's kind of immaterial when you think about comparing us to other places in a way. So when you see, I want my wife to be safe going to the grocery store. I want to be able to know that I can go on a bike ride on the river trail with my 6-year-old and know that we're going to have a safe experience doing that. So a lot of those things that we've seen recently in the headlines, it's been tough to escape. I mean, sometimes you think, well, there's this certain area of town that's challenged, but that area of town seems to be everywhere now. And so there are a lot of factors, and it's complicated, and we hear those numbers, Prop 47, and you hear AB 109, those unique challenges in recent times here that make things even more complex. Homelessness being a broad term, knowing that each person has a different story to tell and reason why they're there. But I think that it has created a challenge also with online options for making purchases. I mean, a person could be at home on Amazon.com, and now they've got a section where you can buy toilet paper and paper towels and food and things like that, and it's delivered to your door really quickly, 1 or 2 days, without paying shipping. All those kinds of influences in the changing global economy, perhaps too, that we're seeing here. So there are all those forces. So that's why I think that if we want our community to be one that's attractive to visitors and a place that people want to live and people want to work here and play here, it's got to be safe. We've got to do something about this. Measure D&E, that is the option at this time that is presented to us, and so for that reason our chamber supports it.
And again, we're talking about measures D and E, which are going to be on the November ballot, which, if they pass, will fund public safety, hire more police officers, hire more firefighters, and other things. There's been a lot of talk about, what, if the measures pass, what this money is going to be spent on. There hasn't been a lot of specifics about what happens if measures D and E don't pass. Is there a plan B, so to speak? Jake, I'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts on, what should happen, or what happens if these measures don't pass?
My thought is absolutely that whether or not this passes, we know that the challenges remain, and so we will not settle for status quo to continue if the measures do not pass by the voters of Reading, and so that's where the chamber continues in its role as an advocate for business to, in a sense, continue to hold the city officials and our elected officials accountable to address the greatest challenge that we're facing right now as a community. That's the best way I can answer it.
How about you, Tony? What happens if these measures don't pass? What can be done? What should be done? Should there be a plan B here?
Well, if the government cannot secure funding, then we've got to go back to the private sector. The interest is there, the wherewithal. So last night at the city council meeting in Reading, there was a presentation on continuum of care, and in that regard, it was about homelessness. Homelessness and crime were somewhat connected. What are the statistics of what the direct relationship is? I'm not exactly sure, but they are. And in that case, they're trying to secure government funding, but if they can't, they're going to continue on their path to try and to solve the problem. Unfortunately, it's a matter of resources and getting them quickly, right? Because these problems of crime and homelessness are substantial. I don't have an answer, and it's like anything else. We're reaching a boiling point, and as things start to boil over, motivation turns into calls to action, right? And I think these measures are a call to action, and if for some reason they don't move forward, the problem doesn't go away, so there'll be other calls to action.
Yep.
So we've been receiving some audience questions beforehand, and currently a common theme with a lot of the questions we are getting is people are afraid that if these ballot initiatives pass, the money's not going to be spent for what it's meant to be spent on. Again, there are a lot of concerns out there. What do you say to that, Jake?
Well, I would say that that's why Measure E exists. It's not simply would you be in favor of a one half of 1 cent sales tax increase locally to fund public safety, but then there's the accompanying advisory measure which spells out how the funds would be used as advised by the voters. So that then plays into the accountability and transparency insistence by the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that that is how the funds are used. The voters are essentially, they're telling the City Council presently and future how they'd like to see those funds used. And when you think about it, just go down the road of, in reality, the way that I look at it is, number one, I've got to be one that bases relationships upon trust and not distrust. I know fear of the unknown is something that's a reality, and that yes, these funds could legally be used for anything, but would they? That's where you get into the reality of the situation. And I think if I'm a city council person who's been elected by the voters, present or future, and the voters have advised me as to how to use the revenue, and then I go against it, that just doesn't seem to be something that would realistically occur. So I've got to believe that they will follow along with the advisory measure E.
And how about you, Tony? Do you any concerns that should these measures pass, that the money's not going to be spent for what it's meant to be spent on?
I would agree exactly with what Jake said. I think that the measures are designed to try and create accountability. And, the form of government that we have and the way our citizens can make commentary at council meetings and things like that. And we have a fairly informed citizenry. I think the process takes care of itself.
Okay. Do we have any other questions at this time? One thing I wanted to ask you, Jake, there was some discussion about going back to the chamber survey. I think you had, what, 20% of your membership?
23%.
So there was some discussion whether that was an accurate representation of the chamber and whether, you should be taking those results and basing an endorsement on it. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think that I had the same question, and so we have some great resources at the local chamber, and that would be our Cal Chamber and our U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and then something called the Western Association of Chamber Executives, and part of their role is surveying chambers and doing these surveys. So I called the president down in Sacramento and said, so that's that very question. What is a sample size that is considered the threshold to be representative of the whole? And his response was 15%. If you can get to 15% of your membership, then that's usually a pretty good representation. And then also to look at, of that percentage that responded, does that represent your group as a whole, like large employers, mid-sized employers, small employers? Is that the composition of your membership as a whole? And in this case it was. So I felt confident that it does reflect our membership. Also, we had the 54 and the 46. 54 in support, 46 opposed. And the comments, I have to go back to that. On the opposition side, I looked through it and I just highlighted those that either didn't have all the information or indicated in their comment that they would likely have supported if something would have been the case that was the case. So, not that you could say every one of them would have voted yes, but I'm just saying that the majority was, in all likelihood, greater disparity than 54-46. So that also gave us some encouragement. But again, we have to listen to our entire membership because we serve all of them, and ultimately the goal of the Reading Chamber of Commerce is to provide the partnership, advocacy, and resources to champion businesses and promote their prosperity. So this is something that's a hurdle to overcome, as Tony mentioned, with public safety right now, to their prosperity as businesses. So we are in support of helping to alleviate what's ailing our community right now. It's as if an analogy I heard was, it's like if you've got a 100-foot sign to put up and you've only given someone a 60-foot ladder, it's hard to put the 100-foot sign up. So it's kind of what we're dealing with right now in these public safety areas and police and fire and mental health, etc. So we want to give the 100-foot ladder to those that need it and to put it to good use. So give them the tools they need, and this revenue should do that.
All right. Well, our time is practically up today. I'd like to thank Jake and Tony for stopping by and talking about this very important topic. We're going to present a recap of this conversation later this evening on Reading.com and in tomorrow's newspaper. Thanks again for following, and thanks again, Jake and Tony.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Are we done? Are we off the air?